I'm going to talk about what happened after the meeting. 28th Jan 2021, we had the meeting. 31st Jan, Sunday morning, we come to church. Most of the volunteers got to know that we had a meeting with Pastor Chaitanya and Janet. We were really surprised because how did most of the volunteers got to know about it? Not just the volunteers, there are some people who are not part of the volunteers also got to know about it. That made me really upset because the meeting that we had was confidential meeting. If we thought of making it public, we would have made it public. We had that meeting right in our house, in between the four walls in our house, and here I am Sunday morning getting to hear that most of them are hurt. My question was, how safe is it to share things with your Pastor Chaitanya and Janet? Now, I also want to mention that we never went and told to anybody till that Sunday. We never told to anybody. I'm close to a lot of people in the church, at least people in the staff. Even I didn't tell them as well. But your Pastor Chaitanya and Janet, the next day after the meeting, which is 29th Jan, they go to office and they have a meeting with the staff. And as I mentioned in my previous video, they took a ride they took Asha and Andrew for a ride, and they scolded them. They asked them, how can you go and tell to Selvin? You should have brought the issue to us. And who is he to question us? Who is he to tell us what we should do? My question to Pastor Chaitanya and Janet is, who am I? Am I not your leadership team member? Am I not your worship team head? And they told the staff that I was rude, that we kind of were angry in our discussions. We never were. We never had any kind of rude tone. And if you felt it, we did ask them, we are sorry about it if you felt it, but we never were rude in our tone. We were very soft and we just asked the questions as we're supposed to ask the questions. Now, your Pastor Chaitanya and Janet tells the staff that who is he to question us? And if he says that volunteers are not getting the word, they should stop coming to this church. Why are they coming to this church? He says that we are preaching copying books, which means worship team can copy songs and sing, and when they copy songs and sing, Holy Spirit moves. But when we copy the sermons, Holy Spirit will not move. That's the statement they told the staff. You can check with the staff. How can you talk like that? We gave your feedback. Is that how you treat us in front of your staff members? Now they called one of the staff members and they asked him as well, what do you think about the volunteers? And he also mentioned whatever issues that I mentioned, especially with volunteers, is true. And they told him as well that what he shouldn't have questioned us like that. Come on, we gave you feedback. We never questioned you. We gave you feedback of what you've done in this church. Not just this church. We gave a feedback to them personally, but it came out. It came out. Now because it came out, and Jan 31st, your pastor stands up in the church and he preaches a sermon which was specifically for me. You might be thinking, Selvin, why do you think so? Because the next day when he goes to the office, he asks his staff, do you think yesterday's sermon was for Selvin? And the staff said, considering what is happening, we all know that it was for Selvin. And you know what was the sermon, staff? He stands in the church, and most of you might have been there. If you are not, you should go back to Jan 31st YouTube video and find out the sermon. Your pastor stands up in the church and he says that I sacrificed for this church. My wife sacrificed for this church. And he calls up the assistant pastors and he tells they all sacrificed for this church. Even if someone takes this church away from me, I know how to build it back. And I knew in my spirit that you fell down. You fell down. As God spoke to us in the devotion couple of weeks before, that if you have the spirit of Nebuchadnezzar, God will take you away. And I knew in my spirit, the day you stood up and said, I built this church, you fell down. So church, this is not a trend of addressing the volunteers. So any person who goes and gives a feedback to your pastor Chaitanya and Janet, the next following Sundays, the sermon will be hitting them. The sermons will be specifically, designed to speak to them. Not just me, most of the volunteers have experienced it. Why would they do this? What makes them to do this? Because they are insecure. They are insecure. Now, because the sermon was for me, and I knew that he went ahead and spoke to people whom he's not supposed to, that's when I decided as a worship team member that I need to be cautious and tell the people of the worship team what exactly happened. Now, after Jan 31st, after 2 Sundays, I called it for a worship team meeting, and I told everyone it is very confidential meeting. And in the worship team meeting, not everyone turned up. Only few turned up for that meeting. Some of them could not make it. Now, in the worship team meeting, whatever I mentioned in the previous videos, the 4 issues, I spoke the same issues to the worship team members. Now, why did I do that? Now, previously there was an incident took place where they tried to manipulate worship team member by spreading negativity about me, saying a false thing which was not true. There are 2 reasons why I called for the worship team meeting. First thing is, as a worship team member, I want to be transparent. A worship team leader, I want to be transparent with my team, and I wanted to let them know what is happening in the church. Because when they get to hear it from somebody else, they might think, I don't want them to question me, why didn't you tell us? That is one reason why I wanted to tell them. The second reason is, one of the worship team member, he stopped coming to church. And the question to the church is, how many of you noticed that this person who plays bass guitar stopped coming to this church? 9 years he served in this church. Now, does your pastor ever bother to call him and check what is happening with him? No, he doesn't care about all these people. Both of them doesn't care what happens to volunteers. I will tell you why I'm saying they don't care in the next video. Now, because this person stopped coming to church, I couldn't take it. I felt very bad. Because for me, I lost a musician in the church. I prayed for musicians in this church. So I know the burden. I know the pain. And I thank God that you have great musicians. Now, I don't call them musicians, great worship team who are very committed and loyal and passionate about doing God's work. And losing one of them was tough or difficult for me. And most of you wouldn't bother about it, because Sunday morning you see a worship team leading worship, you don't care about who is not coming. I mean, why would, as a believer, you would care when your pastor himself does not care who is coming, who is not coming to this church? Now, I don't want that to happen to anybody else. I've seen one of the members dropping out, and I don't want, because of these issues, I don't want to lose another musician. So there are 2 reasons why I called up for the worship team meeting, and I wanted to be very open and honest here. We and I did not speak anything apart from these 4 points. There are certain areas that we touched with respect to the finances, which couple of the worship team members they observed, but we didn't speak anything else apart from these 4 issues. Now, when I said they don't care, I will talk about it in the next video.